Hey everybody, welcome back to Earned Happy Endings and our week on Partly Cloudy. We are about to embark on talking about the sequence of dangerous animal babies, as I like to call it. And meanwhile, the thunderstorm is raging on here, so I am totally in the mood to talk about clouds. So, we introduced the world last time, and we talked about the main protagonists. Where we left off, Peck and Gus, our two protagonists, had a really lovely moment to show how they were friends. But now it is time to pass the alligator baby that Gus made on to Peck and learn about that aspect of their relationship and how it grows and changes to the sadness of Peck. But at this point, Peck is still enthusiastic, and he totally offers up his arms for the new baby. He's excited to meet it, and the storm cloud, i.e. Gus, offers him the alligator. And so the music fades to the kind of sparse spattering of notes, and the film has its first major physical comedy beat. So think back to all our talk about comedy when we talk about this sequence, because this sequence deals a lot with physical comedy and all the requirements therein. So the first major comedy beat is when the alligator bites Peck's head and will not let go. It is another one of those jokes that sounds terrible when you say it out loud, but in the cartoon world is funny, and because it's cartoons, you know that he will not die because of this baby alligator. So as Peck struggles, the alligator inflates with every one of Peck's panicked breaths, and seeing as this film has been so sweet and cuddly up until this point, the comedy is a total tone shift. And the filmmakers use all the skills that they did learn in comedies in order to make the sentiment more effective. The audience can laugh at something fairly dark and not be overwhelmed, therefore, by the adorableness of everything else. And it places conflict in the midst of paradise, and making it, therefore, feel a little bit more down-to-earth and realistic. And here we're talking about, like, emotional realism, not physical realism, there's a very hairy world to go into, so I just want to make it clear that I'm talking about emotional realism here. And so, in real life, this would have been a violent and tragic moment, but because we know it's not real and the margin of safety has been established, it's comedy. And it's an opportunity to put the conflict that was alluded to with his feathers on the screen. So Peck tries to withstand terrible pain and still appear positive, so character strength on Peck's part. While Gus ultimately feels bad for the pain he has caused and tries to take care of Peck. Again, we get to see his sweet nature come through. And so it is really an example of two good creatures trying hard to deal with a difficult situation. So as Peck flies away with the alligator baby, he actually ends the film's first act. So I screwed up a little bit in terms of my ordering, but I hope you'll forgive me. And so the music briefly escalates as he flies away, and the next cut has a color shift from warm pastels to the brighter blues of daylight. So we get a shift. It marks the act break, it marks a change in time and a change in tone to show that that comedic break was not just a break, but the start of a whole new section of the film. We're not in the super sickly sweet world that we were before. And so the day is progressing and the tone is shifting with it. And it's all much edgier. I say the edgier lighting will accompany an edgier sequence. This is what makes Partly Cloudy so palatable, ultimately. And the new music is similar to the score from before, but it's not sweeping, and there are more horns, and so it's slightly more mournful. So while now we are also getting introduced with the potentially sad elements of the film. So it's just there's layers and layers of different emotions here, and what we're expected to be feeling or hoping to be feeling. It's all there in this kind of carefully crafted mix that nothing's very obvious, but everything comes across. And so, like I said, the music still functions a bit like that beautiful carpet I talked about in relation to Lexo Jr., and it really maintains the tone and keeps the focus on Gus and Peck. And so, now that we've rambled on about tone, let's talk content again. The sequence begins with Gus working on a new baby. It's the second scene in what will become a pattern of interactions with Gus and Peck. A lot of filmmaking is finding patterns and finding breaks in patterns and all that, and this is a pattern. And so Peck lands just like he did before, but he looks even more beat up. And so not only are his feathers all askew, they fall out when he salutes, and he is covered in bruises and has branches sticking out of him. So clearly his expedition with the alligator did not ultimately go smoothly. And Gus picks up on that, and he looks totally guilt-ridden and pulls the branches out while trying to clean Peck up, kind of restore everything back to normal and clean up the damage. But he just does try to mask his concern with positivity. We're not full-on tragedy yet. We're still trying to make the best of the situation. And he presents the new cloud baby, and Peck kind of makes the smallest of flinches to show that he is little changed by his experience with the alligator. And they show that the tension is rising between the two characters. It does turn out, though, that Peck was right to flinch. He's not just being sensitive. The new baby turns out to be a mountain goat that promptly rams Peck in the stomach. And Peck tries to laugh this off. He tries to laugh off the pain, just like he did before. But it is immediately followed with Peck looking up at the happy cloud. And this is so small and subtle, but yet so painful, and a turning point, because it is the first time an alternative is presented to Peck, or recognized to the audience. So when Peck looks up, he sees the other stork playing with a new puppy with the happier cloud, and the puppy is extremely cute, and therefore the other cloud presents the option to quit working for Gus and work delivering the decidedly less painful creatures. And so the Pixar team is really careful in how they present this alternative. First of all, the happy cloud is kind of obnoxious, and he's kind of pompous, and he has these really poofy hair, and his world is just so almost nauseatingly sweet, and he never stops laughing. So it's all just like, it has the veneer of kind of, it looks a little shallow in its sweetness. It looks like it's too much. But to Peck, who is now in this kind of painful world, it looks appealing. And in this particular instance, the puppy literally runs inside the cloud and comes out covered in fluff. They really go for maximum effect here. So it will appeal to Peck, but not to us. And so also that cloud is now like tinged with the idea of betrayal. We won't be able to look at that cloud the same way anymore. He or she, will just come across as the hurtful alternative for Peck. And so before we were able to revel in how cute the babies in the clouds were, and now we see them as this kind of exclusive clique of clouds that isolates clouds like Gus and threatens to take away his best friend. And since we are now invested in Gus and his relationship with Peck, that makes the clouds the enemy, even if they don't know about it. So, with all that established, the story takes advantage of this sympathy by immediately following Peck's glance, with Gus looking insecure and hugging his new baby close. So it's a moment that plays on our sympathy for Gus and displays the genuine love he has for these dangerous creations that he brings to life. He wants to love and protect them, and he also is nervous about this idea of Peck possibly leaving him. And so, all that being said, and even though it introduces a really potentially complicated conflict, it's just a glance at this moment. It's just awkward. It's not anything more at this time, and no harm ultimately comes from it. Peck does take the bundle away, letting it headbutt him as he flies. The gauntlet has been thrown, however, and we now know what will happen if Peck gives up on Gus and their relationship. So, there's one final sequence in the sequence of Danger Sandlot Babies. The music switches to accompany it with more strings and a slightly different tune, and it helps to maintain the scene's distance from the introduction. We're in a far different world than we started, and we are also in a different emotional space than we started in. So this time, Gus creates a porcupine baby, which is this adorable menace with painful needles that Peck becomes aware of too late. And the gag starts with Gus presenting Peck with what appears to be this, like, fluffy-looking sheep. It's an exciting moment, because it appears that Gus has finally figured out how to make a baby that, like, won't hurt Peck. And so it looks like they've solved their own problem for a moment. It's this, like, bit of false hope that's just ultimately kind of cruel. But sadly, they are wrong, we are wrong, and what follows is ultimately the comedic high point of the film, because the baby becomes a porcupine as Peck grabs it, and the needles immediately pierce his wings. And in our really sick cartoon logic, this is funny. I saw a bunch of Tom and Jerry cartoons yesterday again, and I was shocked at how violent they are, so this is a traditional thing. So Peck reacts by immediately throwing the baby up and back and forth like a hot potato, and it's played for laughs, but it does have a key subtle detail. Peck refuses to actually drop the baby porcupine. In fact, he feels immediately guilty when he throws it up, and he has this really panicked face, and he goes to catch it even though it causes him more pain. So, it is a tragic scene, ultimately, because it's a comedy of a tortured stork who actually cares about the thing that is hurting him. Like, he genuinely does not want to hurt the baby porcupine. And he therefore shows love for his fellow creature and worries about its well-being, even though it's hurting him. This is key because it makes him not the snowman from Knick Knack and not Presto. So when the same gags happen to a lovable character like Peck, our laughter is bittersweet as opposed to just laughter like Knick Knack and Presto. And meanwhile, Gus watches both Peck and the porcupine with concern. Gus still loves the porcupine even though it hurts Peck, which is evidenced by Gus kind of giving it a soothing pet as soon as control is kind of regained over the situation. But this dramatic sequence of pain is the beginning of what will seem like the end. Both creatures are torn about the right thing to do in a bad situation, and so while the scene was comedic for us, it has consequences in the story world. And Peck gingerly takes the porcupine away, business as usual, and the film transitions to dusk. And that's going to be the signal that we are about to enter the third act of the film, because this is the point of no return in terms of Peck and Gus's relationship. All that pain is really hard to just sweep under the rug. So, next video we will tackle what happens next and how they resolve this very tragic issue. So, come on back.